Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, Bob Przybylo, StickBall report. It is postseason. Postseason to play is upon us. Baseball getting everything ready to go down in Arlington. They started on Tuesday down there. We'll find out who Oklahoma's opponent is. If you can wade through the madness that is the Big 12 bracket, I think the person that let's be frank about it. The person that put this bracket together or that decided the format of this tournament down in Arlington should be shot in the knee. Don't kill them. Just make sure they're injured or something. It is stupid. We'll get into it. A good weekend, though, for Oklahoma. They opened, on the softball side of things, they opened up the NCAA Regional down in Norman over the course of the weekend. A win over Cleveland State and then a pair of wins over Oregon, and they're headed to the 14th consecutive Super Regional, Bob. How was it?
I still felt like a mixed bag. And I know you look at the scores and look at domination across the board and then a tight one Sunday. But, I mean, if you were there, you know it was 1-0 against Cleveland State in the fourth inning. And it's still, for whatever reason, they're still not really putting it together at Love's Field. We'll see if that changes this weekend.
Well, it better.
Against Florida State. But with Saturday and Sunday, you could tell the emotions were just different. Playing Oregon, Melissa Lombardi, Sid Romero on the other side. It's tough for Patty. It might have been tough for a few of the players as well. But they got through it. They had just enough timely hitting. It's not like where they were coming through every single time. But enough of the occasions they came through with the big hit when it mattered most.
What do you think it is about playing at Love's Field?
It's
that they can't get over the it seems like a hump. It seems like there's something there that they just can't. They are not performing well.
And I know when we talked to Patty last week going into the event, she's like, we should be past this. We're practicing now, like, for the last 3-4 weeks.
I mean, if this team's one of the best softball teams in the country, we can't fall back on this idea that they can't play at home.
Yeah,
it's crazy to me.
There's over 4,000 fans per game. It's a little different with the overhang, like different environment compared to what Marita Hines brought. But, you know, Patty said last week, we're done. It's not an excuse. It was never an excuse to begin with. But now we've been practicing here for almost a month. We need to show everyone that this is our home. And it's a very hit and miss thing so far. It's been very confusing to see. They played better in OKC than Norman. If you can do that for one more week, you'll love that. But you've got to get through this weekend.
Best of 2 or 3 as Florida State comes to town. A lot of people familiar with Florida State. Obviously, these two programs have they've gone head-to-head in national championship series, things of the like here. What is it, 2 of the last 3 years?
Yes.
So you obviously don't have the star pitcher in the circle for the Seminoles, but they did get through their regional last week. What can you expect of Florida State coming to town this weekend?
You look at their stats, it seems like it would be a great test for the OU pitching staff. They've got some hitters. They've got, 3 batters with at least, I think, 14, 15 homers, about 4 players with around 50 or more RBIs. So their offense says they'll be able to bring it. But without McKenna Reed, I'm not as sure what the pitching, how much they can really test the Sooners. But again, the OU hitting has been, the most inconsistent part. The defense is gone. It's traveled everywhere. The pitching, for the most part, outside of here or there, like one game here, one game there, they've been pretty lights out. But the hitting, especially situational hitting, has been a problem. And, with the pitching staff that's not as loaded for Florida State, this could be a weekend where the hitting might be able to round into form.
And you don't want to get ahead of yourself and then think that everything is, fixed, and then all of a sudden you're facing some of the elite arms across the country next week at Oklahoma City at the Women's College World Series. How was pitching just overall over the course of the weekend at Love's?
Oh, tremendous! And actually, something I'm going to ask Patty Gasso about here coming up in a few hours. Why Kirsten Deal wasn't used. Mm-hmm. Patty mentioned his son is like Kirsten Deal is chomping at the bit to get out there, but instead they just went Nicole May, Kelly Maxwell, Nicole May, and it worked out really, really. They just brought it.
It seemed like Nicole May was dominant.
Those were like seniors that were ready for this moment, time and time again. Especially Maxwell on a Sunday when it's 3-2, coming in for the 6th inning. When we know in relief she hasn't always fared exactly well. So for her to dominate in the 6th and the 7th, just like Nicole May dominated against Texas in the Big 12 championship, Now you're starting to get a little more trust that, okay, maybe with May and Maxwell, I can just call them whenever I want and not just as a starter.
It'd be nice to be able to lean on some senior arms going through, obviously the super regional ahead this weekend, and then, and the next weekend when you are going to need truly dominant efforts in the circle. It seems like, anytime that Oklahoma's won a national championship or they're competing for a national championship, it usually comes down to who's in the circle and who's producing. I mean, I think Jordy Ball's been a great example of that over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's why Patty was trying to lean on Carly Keeney, and she did it Friday. I mean, there wasn't a lot of pressure. But then when she came in Saturday against Oregon and went from 6-1 to 6-3, so they bring Maxwell back in. Like, doesn't mean the trust isn't there or the faith isn't there with Carly, but it's one of those things like, I need you in these big moments.
Right.
You need to show me that I can trust you in these big moments. And that's why Sunday they didn't even look at Carly. It was just Nicole May for 5, Kelly for 2, and let's hope that's enough. 3-2 win. You're able to clinch the berth and then rework it. We'll see what the staff looks like coming up Thursday night.
You get into that regional final against Oregon the second time that they beat them, the first time on Sunday, obviously, and I think just watching from afar, it was like 2-2, and all of a sudden Nicole May had ran into a little bit of trouble, and Oklahoma was able to get out of that, put up a run, get out of the game, and win, and obviously win the regional. If Oklahoma's not able to get out of this weekend, what do you think it would be? What would hold them back from not getting out of a super regional and back up to Oklahoma City?
It would be the timely hitting,
sure.
The lack of 2-out hitting that has been the story of their runs the last 3 years. It's been so sporadic and inconsistent throughout the course of the season. It would finally just catch up to them. They even on a Sunday, I think through the first 3 or 4 innings, they left 7 on base. You're like, is this the day where that comes back to haunt them? You can't keep going to that well and not having it come back to bite you time and time again. But they've been able to get through it, and a lot of it, again, has been the freshmen. It's been Cassie Pickering and Ella Parker getting things rolling initially to where the seniors calm down. Jada Coleman was fantastic on Sunday. Tiare Jennings had a really nice weekend. And I think one of the sneaky plays of the entire weekend was Riley Boone making the throw to get the runner out at the plate.
Yeah, that was a great play.
Oregon was trying to take the lead because if Oregon's up 3-2, who knows what the complexion of that game looks like the rest of the way.
Great throw by Boone. I thought it was a hell of a tag by Kinsey Hansen as well to make it as easy as that looked. A weird schedule this week. And I say weird because I'm just so used to Friday, Saturday, Sunday series stuff. Thursday night start, 6 o'clock against Florida State. Friday, and then TBA on Saturday. We don't have a start time yet?
No. I mean, for one thing, we don't even know if there's going to be one.
The if game.
But then, then they'll probably just look around and see where it fits in best within the family of networks. But yeah, it'll be Thursday at 6, weather permitting. I know we're in the marginal risk for severe weather.
It's the middle of May, folks. If you're not used to that in Oklahoma, I don't know if you're familiar with the program here.
And then Friday at 7, that Friday seems like it's going to be just fine, so you don't have to worry about that. And then just going into maybe the if game Saturday. But yeah, the Bruins and the Sooners are the 2 of the 8 that will get underway on Thursday.
Interesting. And then just in terms of Big 12 wrap-up, Oklahoma State, Texas are through. And surprise, surprise, how about Baylor getting through over the course of the weekend?
I mean, so you get 4 there. I can't imagine OU, OSU, Texas not making it OKC. So that would give you 3.
Arizona headed up to Stillwater, huh?
Yeah. There were only, just a couple minor upsets there with Arkansas going down and Louisiana going down. But, yeah, obviously now OU fans will be watching Missouri and Duke, especially if OU starts looking good. Seminoles, that obviously would be their first matchup. Missouri had to go life and death with Omaha a couple times before pulling out that regional. And Duke, a lot of people thought was underseeded at 10, so maybe they knocked them off. And it's a Duke-OU rematch from the very first week of the season.
Very cool. It's going to be kind of exciting to watch. I know that there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens over the next couple days, obviously in Norman, but it all kind of seems like it's headed in, progressing into the direction that you're going to get the teams that we've been talking about, the Texas, the Oklahoma States of the world. At least 3 of the 8 come to Oklahoma City starting next week, which Thursday, right? Starts on Thursday.
Yes, indeed.
Women's College World Series. Got Media Day coming up on Wednesday of next week. Don't want to get, count too many eggs before they hatch, but certainly it feels like you're headed in progressing into what is I think a little bit of a commonplace for Oklahoma softball.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason to feel confident is just because of the way Kelly Maxwell bounced back after Bedlam,
Sure.
and the way that Nicole May is pitching at a level this season that she hadn't been the entire
Not
rest
to
of the
mention,
year.
I mean, let's be honest. They've lost, 2 series in 2 years? I don't think that they're going to lose the 3rd series, although we'll see. I guess that's why you play the game. You got to go out and get – is that 21 outs? And I was going to say 27 outs. You have to get 27 outs over at in Arlington, but it should be really good. And it seems like there is a good mojo. How was Melissa Lombardi? Did she even talk to the media while she was here?
She did. I will tell you, I didn't stay for it.
You didn't need to.
But I mean, the emotions. I basically got Patty to kind of break down a little bit Sunday, just talking about it. Just what that moment meant, the post game huddle that the coaches had, and how rough of a weekend it really was. I mean, there's been a reason that Patty has never scheduled Oregon since Melissa took over the programs. They were forced, obviously, to go at it this weekend. And what she appreciated more than anything else, such well-played games.
Yeah.
So much respect, up and down, both sides. No chippiness, no trash talking, no nothing. It was just well-played games Saturday and Sunday.
A little bit different this weekend? It seems like there's a little bit of something between OU and Florida State. I don't know. Am I just misremembering that from the last couple years?
I feel like it's more the fans, Danny Cannell, than it is more than
super
with Lonnie
douchebag, right?
Than with the teams themselves. But obviously,
I didn't know if there was an actual rivalry there, if it's just something that social media feeds off of, and then it becomes takes on a life of its own, basically. So I don't know. We'll see. OU baseball headed. They're done with the regular season. Obviously, a tremendous year. Skip Johnson named Coach of the Year. You had 5 first and second team selections: Michael Snyder, Easton Carmichael, Braden Davis on the first team, and then Bryce. I keep calling him Bryson for some reason this morning. I think it's because of Bryson DeChambeau over the weekend. Bryce Madron, as well as Kyson Witherspoon on the second team, and then a host of guys on the honorable mention team. Jackson Willis makes all freshman team in the Big 12. When it's all said and done, though, you got the first and second team guys. 5 of them, 5 selections from Oklahoma. That's the 3rd most in school history. Obviously, Skip Johnson winning Coach of the Year. That is the first time that an Oklahoma coach has done that on the heels of the most wins, 34 wins, the most wins that Oklahoma's had in the regular season since 2018, as well as the most conference wins ever in school history with 23. So it's kind of crazy that it's all here.
It doesn't compute when you look at the overall record.
No.
And you look at the conference record.
No.
What a way of dominating the conference.
It's insane. I mean, and I think that, there is some questions in terms of you're moving into the time of the year where you're going to see a lot of really good pitching. Oklahoma's been excellent from an offensive standpoint. We talked about that here over the last couple of weeks. How does that hold up when you're facing some of these bigger arms? And you might get it right out of the gate with Pitcher of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, Peyton Toll. He's probably going to get the ball if it's going to be TCU on Wednesday down in Arlington at Globe Life. TCU leads while we record this right now. I've never seen anything like it.
Me neither.
The way that they worded it. So, on top of OU's bracket, you play the lowest seeded team is what they call it, but it's the highest seeded team. I don't understand. Don't get me started. I almost blew a gasket this morning on radio talking about it, but they will play the highest seeded team. So the biggest number, if you will.
Yes, it's Kansas or the Frogs.
That's right.
There you go.
Kansas knocks off Kansas State on Tuesday boarding in the first game of the 9:00 game down in Arlington. So it's kind of weird. So you go into this week, you're really in a strong position, obviously, to host a region. You're hosting a region. We can probably move past that.
Yep.
It's going to be the first NCAA regional in Norman since 2010. I think it's safe to say you're hosting a regional. Now,
Beyond that
is where it becomes interesting because you win the Big 12. Obviously, it helps with the resume. The strength of schedule has been really good. The RPI's been really good. You look at Baseball America. You look at D1 Baseball, where they moved into the top 10 this week, number 8. Both of them have them as top 8 regional host or top 8 national seed, which obviously means much like softball in the sport of baseball, you're able to host a super regional, which would be important for Oklahoma. If they were able to get through next week with a regional, you would host the super regional. So how much does a Big 12 tournament play a part of that? I know that, like,
that's my question.
You guys asked Patty about it, and she was basically like, don't think it really matters.
I'm pretty sure, but that's a difference between like going for 1-2 than 8 or 9.
Sure.
And that's where I'm kind of
Sure.
go with you here. Let's say they don't sweep it, and like maybe they win 2, but they don't win the entire thing.
Yeah.
Who's sneaking up like at 9 or 10 that would?
Well, and that's where it becomes even more interesting, because I think you have to start looking about nationally.
Yes.
Like, where's East Carolina going to fall into the swing of things if they're not able to win the American Athletic Conference? You start looking at maybe an NC State, which is certainly in there. I had it pulled up just a minute ago.
Who are we scoreboard watching like we're bubble watching in basketball?
Everybody. I think most importantly, you watch Oklahoma's, because if they can win 2 games this weekend, it might not even matter what everybody else across the country is doing. You might be able to just, kind of somewhat punch a ticket without actually winning the Big 12. Now, granted, that's going to probably be a difference of who did you lose to, that type of stuff within the Big 12. I certainly don't think that you can go out there and lose to, let's just throw out a name, TCU. But I think if you have a good weekend, if you have a good performance, you should be in pretty good shape with what you were able to do during the regular season. Like, I think that there's a reason why all of this stuff matters, right? Like, why the regular season matters. So it is going to be interesting to see who kind of jumps up in terms of national perspective. But I don't think that you're going to look up either and all of a sudden, like, Oklahoma is going to be a top 5. Like, I don't think that's probably the case. You're probably looking at 7, 8, something like that.
Okay.
6, maybe 6. If you won the Big 12, I could see them getting up to 6. But I clearly don't have any idea how they do this stuff. It's purely a speculation. It's much like, and I think that's why you see like such a difference in what Baseball America does versus D1 baseball, and then all the other ones out there. Too many. Maybe the NCAA should just put something out. But
going back to last weekend, anything to take from it? Another late collapse on Friday.
Yeah,
but
I mean, outside of
2 or 3.
that, you won 2 or 3. I think if you would have asked anybody at the beginning of the week, hey, they're going to take 2 or 3, no questions about it. Maybe you have a little bit of cautious concern, I guess, if we want to put it that way, with with the continued lack thereof on the back end. But at the same time, how much do you rack up a 7-run 8th inning to just bad luck too? Now, then again, I think there's a lot of people that would say that's happened before. It's nothing new for Oklahoma. They're going to need Malachi Witherspoon to pitch well, regardless of when that time comes, when he comes into a game. Can you lean on to Ryan Lambert? Can you lean on to whoever's coming out of the bullpen, whether it be Carson Atwood or Carter Campbell, Jace Minor? There's a bunch of arms. I would probably personally like to see that list of names whittled down to just a select few that enter into the back end of the games. But then again, you're entering a tournament where you never know what's going to happen and what the what spot you're going to be in. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do on Wednesday in that first game, particularly from a starting standpoint. Carson Atwood's started in that role before. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to all of a sudden look up and burn a bunch of starters and mess them up for next week at a regional, which is way more important than anything that's going to happen in Arlington this week. So I think that they're going to go with maybe somebody from the bullpen and try to Johnny Holstaff that thing. But at the same time, if you're having to pitch against the pitcher of the year in Peyton Tolle, all of a sudden you can just go Braden Davis, which I think could probably be the case as well. So they already beat him once, way back at the beginning of the year, down in Fort Worth.
It was a huge win.
Yeah,
huge
for sure. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what they do. If if all of a sudden you look up and you're playing at Kansas, maybe you would be more apt to throw somebody that maybe you're not having to lean on towards the end of your Friday night or your Saturday night starter.
Does OU feel like the number 1 seed, or does it feel like there's another team that's kind of roaring into this too?
I always have a tough time with this because, like, the Big 12 tournament it's always so much more important for everybody else than that number 1 or even the number 2 team. I think Oklahoma State's probably positioned themselves pretty well just in terms of hosting next week in the regional. So, like, a TCU needs this thing way more than somebody like an Oklahoma or an Oklahoma State. And how do you get them? Are they motivated to be there? Not to say that I don't think that Oklahoma's going to be motivated to be there, but I think that there is going to be a lot of excitement about what is to come next week when you get into the NCAA tournament. So I don't know if we've had the number 1 seed run the table here over the last couple years. It feels like it's always been somebody kind of from out of the blue that steals a spot, that gets hot. But I think most importantly for me, it's about seeing what Oklahoma does from an offensive standpoint when they do face some of these better arms that they're going to face if you're able to get to the semifinals or finals or even the opening round game if it is going to be TCU. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting, but they are positioning themselves extremely well for what I think at the beginning of the year everybody would have said was a very successful season if you're playing postseason baseball at L. Mitchell.
Absolutely. I don't know if you thought it was possible initially. I
No.
did not think they were going to be able to turn it
I also didn't
all
think that they would sweep 6 different conference opponents this year. And seemingly outside of the West Virginia, Texas, and Oklahoma State series, which they obviously lost 2, 3, and 4 in the conference.
Right.
But then they literally swept everybody else outside of Cincinnati, who they blew the 7-run, or what is it? Yeah, 7 runs in the 8th inning on last Friday.
Friday, yep.
My days are all mixed up now that we are on the back end of this. But we do know this. Oklahoma will take on somebody at 12:30 on Wednesday afternoon down at the Globe Life Field. I keep wanting to call it the ballpark in Arlington.
Right.
But
why not?
It's the same thing.
It is.
They're in the same vicinity, the same sector. So I'll be headed down there to bring you guys full coverage. Make sure that you hang out on Soonerscoop.com, where Bob will be bringing us coverage from Love's Field this weekend, Thursday through Saturday, hopefully Thursday and Friday, as they take on Florida State in the Super Regional. And before we know it, we'll be talking about Women's College World Series, which, it seems like it was so far away, but now it's so close. I mean, we're literally less than a week away.
We've made it.
We have made it. All right. And you've made it to the end of this program. That is a StickBall report getting both Oklahoma teams back into really, truly postseason play here. So for Bob, I'm Eddie. We'll see you right back here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube page.